Sometimes when NBA players get a facial injury, they are forced to wear a protective mask to prevent re-injury during the healing process. Some players had iconic moments while wearing the face masks, which caused the NBA community to make memes about it. Turns out, throughout time, there have been many occasions of players wearing face masks, so this video is about every player that wore a face mask in NBA history. The first category is all the players that used a clear mask with white straps in-game. On Christmas Day in 2020, Kawhi Leonard suffered an injury after being elbowed in the face by teammate Serge Ibaka, which left him bloody on the hardwood. He had to get 8 stitches on the bottom of his lip and the side of his jaw inside his mouth, and the injury caused him to miss 2 games. In his first game back from the injury, he wore a clear mask with white straps that was not formed to his face to protect from any impact on the sutures as his face healed. He scored 28 points, had 7 assists, and 3 steals in a Clippers win. After the game, he joked with the media, saying his teammates called him leatherface, and Serge Ibaka was on the trading block for causing the injury. In a 2005 Game 2 of the Western Conference semifinals against the Mavericks, rookie Joe Johnson suffered a broken left cheekbone after a face-first crash to the floor. He had surgery where 3 metal plates were inserted into his left cheek to hold the broken bone in place and was given a clear mask to protect the injury while it healed. He played in Game 3 of the Western Conference Finals against the Spurs with his left eye blood red but with clear vision. Dennis Rodman wore a clear mask with white straps while playing on the Spurs in 1994. In a game against the Mavericks, he was accidentally elbowed in the nose by Popeye Jones, which caused blood to stream down his face. He underwent surgery for a deviated septum and returned against the Hawks wearing his protective mask. As a New Jersey Net, Kenyon Martin wore a clear mask with white straps on November 22, 2002. He had to wear it because a few days earlier, on November 15th, he was elbowed in the nose by Andrew DeClercq of the Magic. He suffered a bloody nose and claimed DeClercq did it on purpose. In a February 2015 game, Russell Westbrook suffered a fractured cheekbone, which required him to wear a clear mask with white straps afterwards. He was going in for a rebound after missing a free throw, and as he was getting up, teammate Andre Roberson accidentally kneed him in the face. Fans could clearly see a dent in the side of his head after the incident. He was diagnosed with a zygomatic arch fracture and underwent successful surgery to resolve it, coming back to play after missing 1 game. In his first game back, he didn't miss a beat, getting a triple-double for the 4th consecutive game where he had 49 points and 15 rebounds, which were career highs at the time. Back in 2005, Andrew Bogut suffered a broken nose while playing for the Milwaukee Bucks. He underwent surgery and had to wear a protective face shield for 6 weeks to protect the area. He also wore a similar mask in 2008 after breaking his nose again on the Bucks. The next category is all the players that used a clear mask with black straps in-game. In a 1990 preseason game, Detroit Piston Bill Laimbeer broke his nose on Olden Polynice's shoulder. He had surgery to fix the bone and wanted a better fitting, more comfortable mask to wear than what was traditionally used in the NBA to that point. In came orthotist Jerry McHale, who designed a custom mask modeled after what was used for burn victims. Laimbeer returned for the first game of the 1990-91 season wearing the NBA's first clear plastic mask. It contoured to his face, and the style became the modern standard for protective face masks in the NBA. In 2008, while a member of the Orlando Magic, Hedo Turkoglu had to wear a mask after Dwight Howard broke his nose. In 2010, while on the Raptors, he fractured his orbital bone and did not want to wear a mask because his first experience was uncomfortable. Team staff did not let him get away and forced him to wear one. In 2012, while on the Magic again, he was forced to wear a protective mask for the 3rd time in his NBA career during the postseason. after being elbowed by Carmelo Anthony and having his cheek fractured. In a March 2012 game against the Spurs, Clippers guard Chris Paul caught an elbow to the face in the first quarter. He continued to play and put up 36 points, 11 assists, and 4 steals. Turns out afterwards, it was discovered that he suffered a nasal fracture, and 2 days later he returned to play wearing a clear mask with black straps to protect his nose. In the first game wearing the mask, he put up 23 points, 5 assists, and 3 steals, showing that a mask could not stop the all-star point guard. In 2014, J.R. Smith on the New York Knicks played with a protective face mask because he suffered a small fracture in his left cheekbone. In April 1996, Charles Oakley suffered a minimally displaced fractured orbital bone below his right eye that caused his eye to be swollen shut, and 6 stitches were required under his eye. The injury, accidentally caused by Knicks teammate Patrick Ewing's elbow, forced Oakley to miss 6 games at the end of the regular season. He came back for Game 1 of the Eastern Conference playoffs against the Cavaliers wearing a clear mask, and at one point in the series, he shaved his head and wore a headband to restrict sweat from rolling down into it. Ersan Illyasova had admitted that he had 9 nasal fractures during his basketball career. 2 of the worst breaks he's experienced were both when he played for the Milwaukee Bucks in 2014 and 2018. In 2014, he collided with Cavalier Tristan Thompson's elbow, which broke his nose, required surgery, and a protective mask. In 2018, he broke it during practice and needed to wear a face mask in-game while the injury healed. In Game 2 of the 2020 Western Conference Finals, Devin Booker's face collided with Patrick Beverley's face, causing Booker to suffer a broken nose. In Game 3, Booker played with a face mask to protect the stitches on his newly surgically repaired nose. In Game 4, he wore the mask again, but took it off in the third quarter because he felt discomfort and felt his play had suffered. In Game 5, he wore it again after seeking advice from Rip Hamilton on how to get more comfortable wearing a mask in-game. In Game 6 of the series, he stopped wearing the mask, but got elbowed in his healing nose by Paul George, which caused Booker to endure more pain. In 2015, when Andrew Bogut was playing on the Golden State Warriors, he again suffered a broken nose and had to wear a face mask to protect it. This time, it had black straps unlike his mask in Milwaukee. In 2005, while on the Cleveland Cavaliers, LeBron James caught an elbow to the face by Rockets center Dikembe Mutombo. This impact broke his left cheekbone, and when he returned to play, he was wearing a clear mask with black straps. In his first game wearing the mask, he dropped 26 points, 8 rebounds, and had 6 assists. In 2014, while a member of the Miami Heat, LeBron broke his nose while driving and dunking on Serge Ibaka. A few games later, he wore a clear mask again and dropped 61 points on the Charlotte Bobcats, which to this day is still his career high. As you're watching this video through to the end and notice any missing players, comment it down below. Kyle Korver broke his nose against the Lakers in 2015. As a member of the Atlanta Hawks, Korver wore a clear mask with black straps for a few weeks while waiting for his injury to heal. In some of the games following the cheek fracture mentioned before, Russell Westbrook also wore a clear face mask with black straps. He played really well in the stretch when he was required to wear a face mask. In 2021, as a member of the Portland Trail Blazers, Robert Covington broke his nose and had it surgically repaired. He continued to play after surgery by wearing a protective mask to let his nose heal. At one point, while wearing the mask, he threw his face mask in the direction of a ref, which resulted in an ejection and a fine from the league. While playing on the Celtics in 2017, Kyrie Irving suffered a facial fracture after being accidentally elbowed by teammate Aron Baynes. He missed one game with the injury and then came back against the Nets wearing a clear mask. His mask had a special bubble on the cheek to further protect his face from damage. Kyrie scored 25 points and had 5 assists in his first game back wearing the mask. In a 2012 meeting between the Pacers and the Lakers, Kobe Bryant broke Roy Hibbert's nose that forced him to wear a face mask. A few years later, in 2015, Hibbert broke his nose again against the Pistons while on the Lakers, which caused him to wear a mask once again. Chicago Bull Derrick Rose wore a protective face mask back in 2015. Before the start of the season, he suffered a left orbital fracture during training camp. He underwent surgery to repair his left eye socket and was out for 2 weeks. When he came back to play, he wore a clear mask with black straps. Back in 2011, Anderson Varejao of the Cleveland Cavaliers wore a protective mask after injuring his broken right cheek. Unlike other NBA players, he didn't have much mask discomfort and was overall surprised how light his mask was. When Tracy McGrady played on the Houston Rockets in 2006, he also suffered an injury that required him to wear a face mask. He was elbowed in the face by Jake Voskuhl, which led to a broken and bloody nose that only a clear mask could protect. As an Indiana Pacer, Monta Ellis broke his nose and wore a mask for a large portion of the 2017 season. In the 2012 NBA All-Star Game, Dwayne Wade fouled Kobe Bryant hard while he was going up for a layup. What resulted was Kobe sustaining a nasal fracture. When normal play resumed, he wore a clear mask with black straps and dropped 31 points on the Timberwolves. The next game, he dropped 38 points on the Kings, and another game wearing the mask, he dropped 33 points on the LeBron Heat. In 2008, Shawn Marion broke his nose, and the Miami Heat player wore a protective face mask in games as it healed. In 1999, Antawn Jamison of the Golden State Warriors wore a mask to protect his face. Nick Collison wore a clear mask for 20 games in 2005 as a Supersonic, after a collision with Stephen Hunter. He also wore one in 2007 after being hit in the face by Kobe and fracturing his right nasal wall. The next category is all the players that used a clear mask with padding in-game. In 1996, AC Green caught an elbow to the face from Nick J.R. Reed. The impact caused him to lose 2 of his bottom front teeth. One was knocked out instantly, and the other was loose and pulled out by Green in the locker room. The following Suns game, he came out wearing this clear mask with a lot of padding to maintain his streak of most games played in a row. Prior to the plain clear mask from earlier, Kenyon Martin wore this padded clear mask for his nose. He wore it on November 16, 2002, a day after being elbowed by Andrew DeClercq. As part of the Miami Heat, Alonzo Mourning wore a mask/helmet combo to protect his fractured cheek in 1998. His was very unique compared to many other masks up to that point, especially with the blue padding. Harrison Barnes needed to wear a padded mask in 2014 to protect his nose on the Warriors. Later on, he switched to a plain, clear mask. In 2009, Andrea Bargnani needed a protective mask with a lot of padding as a member of the Toronto Raptors. It's safe to assume his nose needed the protection. The next category is all the players that used a clear mask that was partially or fully held in place by a sweatband. The most well-known mask-wearing NBA player is no doubt Rip Hamilton. In the 2003 season, he broke his nose twice and had previously broke his nose many times before. After undergoing numerous surgeries and missing games, he was advised to start wearing a mask to prevent any future nose reconstruction surgeries. While wearing his headband-assisted mask, he started playing well, and it became his good luck charm. The look gave Rip a uniqueness on the court, so he continued to wear it to the point that it became his brand. He wore a mask for the rest of his NBA career until retiring in 2013. In 2015, Mike Conley wore a mask to protect his left cheek as it healed. As a member of the Grizzlies at the time, an elbow was smashed into his face, which required the need for the mask. Jason Terry wore a sweatband-assisted mask in 2010 as part of the Dallas Mavericks. He was elbowed in the face by Corey Brewer, which cracked his left orbital bone and required surgery. He wore the protective mask for 15 games to finish the 2009-2010 regular season. In 2009, Wally Zarbiak had to wear a mask after breaking his nose against the New York Knicks. He played several games for the Cleveland Cavaliers wearing the mask and a headband. After suffering a broken nose in 2015, Wizard Bradley Beal also wore a sweatband-assisted mask as his injury healed. The next category is all the players that used a colored mask, which includes white, cream, tan, and silver. In 1992, Charles Barkley suffered a broken nose after being elbowed by a Phoenix Suns player. Barkley, a Sixer at the time, wore a tan mask that only covered his nose as it healed in the subsequent games after his injury. New York Knick John Starks donned a couple of different types of protective masks in the 1993 season to protect his broken nose. A white nose covering mask was worn by Harold Presley when he was a member of the Sacramento Kings in 1988. When playing on the Detroit Pistons, Earl Cureton wore a tan nose protecting mask in 1985. Will Perdue also wore a unique-looking silver mask when he played on the Spurs that was required because he broke his eye socket. The next category is all the players that used a black-colored mask in-game. During the time Kobe wore the clear mask mentioned earlier, he tried out a black mask with oversized holes that became somewhat iconic to basketball fans, but switched back to the clear one after playing poorly. In total, Bryant was masked for 11 NBA games while his broken nose healed. His averages for those games were 29.5 points, 5.3 rebounds, and 4.4 assists. Back in 2012, when Kyrie Irving was a Cavalier, he suffered a broken bone in his jaw against the Bucks. He didn't miss any games for the injury and played in a black mask against the Knicks at MSG. He was originally going to wear a clear mask, but it took the material too long to harden before the next game. With the black mask, Kyrie claimed to have poor peripheral vision, but still dropped 41 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists in the game, which was a career high at the time. Some NBA media refer to Kyrie as the Phantom of the Garden in this game. Joel Embiid broke his right orbital bone after running into teammate Markelle Fultz's shoulder in 2018. The Sixers star was sidelined for several weeks and was given a black mask with a clear bubble over the eyes to protect his face upon return to play. Prior to coming back to play, he called himself the Phantom of the Process, a parody of the Phantom of the Opera, and even wore a white Phantom of the Opera mask to the Sixers' Game 1 of the playoffs, despite not playing in the first 2 games. In Game 3, he came back wearing the black mask and was clearly uncomfortable playing in it. He adjusted it constantly and threw it down from frustration. Despite the mask, he still played well and helped the Sixers advance in the playoffs. The game before LeBron's career high in points I mentioned earlier, he wore a different type of mask in 2014. After getting his nose broken by Serge Ibaka, LeBron's next game was when he wore the iconic black carbon fiber mask that received many comparisons to the Dark Knight Batman. He had the mask made quickly and chose carbon fiber because it was lightweight and strong. After the game, the NBA requested he not wear the mask again, giving the reason that opponents couldn't see his true facial expressions. LeBron complied with the request and switched to the clear mask mentioned earlier in the video. The final category is all the players that used a more unique looking mask or earlier NBA mask technology overall. This face shield monstrosity that Wilt Chamberlain wore in 1960 was used as protection for some loose teeth from a mouth injury. In 1964, Wilt also wore a more common padded nose mask after breaking his nose. Lloyd Neal wore a Jason Voorhees-style old-school hockey mask as a Portland Trailblazer in the 1970s. He took an elbow to the nose from George Gervin, which broke it, and this was used as protection. In a 1997 scuffle on the court, Rudy Tomjanovich suffered life-threatening injuries after being punched in the face by Kermit Washington. He crumpled to the floor, and it was later discovered that he had a shattered jaw and face bone, his skull was dislocated, and he even could taste spinal fluid in his mouth as it was leaking from his brain. The injuries sidelined him for 5 months, but he made a full recovery and came back to basketball wearing a more unique-looking mask. Despite being an all-star 2 seasons after the injuries, Rudy never got back to his elite basketball status and retired early from the sport. Kermit Washington's punishment for almost killing a person was a 60-day suspension and a $10,000 fine. Al McGuire wore a heavily padded mask and helmet-looking contraption in 1953 as a member of the New York Knicks. As a member of the Syracuse Nationals, Dolph Schayes wore a weird-looking mask to protect his broken cheekbone, which sidelined him after playing over 700 consecutive games. Oscar Robertson wore a mouthguard headgear as he was trying to protect his injured mouth in 1967 as a player for the Cincinnati Royals. This is kind of a stretch, but Jerry West wore this tape face mask after breaking his nose in 1965 as a Los Angeles Laker. Thanks for watching. This video took a long time to make and it was difficult to find much of the information. If you notice any players that wore a mask in the NBA that I missed, let us know in the comments. Also, if any mistakes were made in this video, also comment below. Subscribe for more sports content, follow me on Twitter, and of course, like the video. Thanks.